What to do in Rome?
See the sights in Rome.
Top tourist attraction in Rome.
The Colosseum is still the largest standing amphitheater in the world today, despite its age.
Over 1,940 years.
It was built in the 80s of our era.
Arch by the Colosseum.
The Arch of Constantine is a triumphal arch dedicated to Emperor Constantine the Great in 315.
What was the Colosseum for?
The Colosseum was used to host gladiatorial shows as well as a variety of other events. The shows, called munera, were always given by private individuals rather. They had a strong religious element, but were also demonstrations of power and family prestige, and were immensely popular with the population. Temple of Venus and Roma located on the Velian hill next to the Colosseum in 135 AD.
Nearby are the Imperial Forums.
Let's go there. The Forum of Augustus is one of the Imperial Forums of Rome, Italy, built by Caesar Augustus, also known as Octavian, during the reign of 27 BC. 14 AD. Trajan's Forum was the last of the imperial forums built in ancient Rome, between 106 and 112 AD. Statue of Emperor Trajan.
The statue of Augustus shows the direction where the monument to Victor Emmanuel II is located.
Let's go there. Victor Emmanuel II 1861 assumed the title of King of Italy and became the first king of an independent united Italy. The Victor Emmanuel II National Monument, also known as Altar of the Fatherland, is built between 1885 and 1935. It occupies a site between the Piazza Venezia and the Capitoline Hill. Here is the Capitoline Square, created by Michelangelo in 1546. Statues of the Dioscuri. Immortal Pollux on the right. On the left is his mortal twin brother Castor. Fountain of the goddess Rome. In the middle stands an equestrian statue of Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Michelangelo's turn of the community center away from the Roman Forum can be seen as Michelangelo's desire to turn towards a new, developing part of the city, and not towards the ancient ruins of the past.
Piazza del Popolo, or People's Square.
The twin churches of Santa Maria di Monte Santo left and Santa Maria dei Miracoli right. Fountain of Lions, 4 mini fountains, each representing a lion on a stepped plinth. Di Roma is the female deity of Rome between the Tiber and Anion, 2 rivers. She will feeding Romulus and Remus. Fountain of Neptune. Neptune with his trident is accompanied by 2 tritons. Fountains by Giovanni Saccarini 1822-1823. The parish Basilica of Santa Maria del Popolo is a church run by the Augustinian order. 1477.
A 10-minute walk from Piazza del Popolo is Piazza di Spagna and the famous Spanish steps.
The imposing 135-step staircase was inaugurated by Pope Benedict XIII during the 1725 Jubilee. It was released to connect the Bourbon Spanish embassy to the Church of Trinidad dei Monti. Fontana della Barcaccia was built in 1629 by Pietro Bernini.
At the other end of the Piazza di Spagna there is another attraction, the Colonna dell'Immacolata Conception.
The Column of the Immaculate Conception is a 19th century monument depicting the Virgin Mary. Since December 1953, pontiffs have visited the monument annually and offered a bouquet of flowers at the base of the column with help of Roman firemen commemorating the Feast of the Immaculate Conception.
Let's go back to Capitoline Hill, there is more to see.
Climbing the steps leading to the Capitol, on the left you can see the monument to Cola di Rienzo, a statue of the great Roman commander and tribune, who lived in the 14th century and was killed during a popular uprising. Staircase of the Oracoeli, 12th century. The Basilica of St. Mary of the Heavenly Altar is located on the highest peak of Campidoglio. The shrine is known for containing relics belonging to Saint Paulina, the mother of Emperor Constantine.
Piazza Venezia.
If all roads lead to Rome, then they all end here. Piazza Venezia is the very epicenter of the Eternal City. Within a 360-degree turn, Roman history unrolls in front of you, from its ancient beginnings to its 21st century transformations. Whether it's those historical playgrounds known as the Roman and Imperial Forums, or the side street shops, trattoria, and churches, this neighborhood packs a cultural punch and then some. Screaming scooters, battling buses, crazy cars, and lots of foot traffic converge in the area all day long. Don't be surprised if you find yourself passing through the Piazza Venezia at least once a day, since it's the most direct way to get from one side of town to another.
Nice, so cute.
Trajan's Column is a triumphal column in Rome dedicated to the victory of the Roman Emperor Trajan in the Dacian Wars. 113 AD. The statue of Trajan was replaced by a bronze figure of St. Peter the Apostle in 1587. Church of the Most Holy Name of Mary in the Forum of Trajan is a Roman Catholic church in Rome, Italy. Completed in 1751. The marble church stands in front of the Column of Trajan, a few dozen steps from the similarly domed Church of Santa Maria di Loreto. After the Jubilee of 1500, the Association of Bakers received permission from Pope Alexander VI to build a church at this site. Construction of this church began in 1507. Both churches look harmoniously on Piazza Venezia in Rome.
And now let's go to one of the oldest temples in Rome, the Pantheon.
The Pantheon is a former Roman temple founded in 113 to 125 AD. From Greek Pantheon, temple of all the gods. Since 609 a Catholic church. The oculus at the dome's apex and the entry door are the only natural sources of light in the interior. The square in front of the Pantheon, where the Fontana del Pantheon is located, is called Piazza della Rotonda. The fountain was created by one of the most important Renaissance architects, Giacomo della Porta, a student of Michelangelo, in 1575. After the death of Michelangelo Buonarroti, he created the dome of St. Peter's Basilica. The popular Piazza Navona also houses several fountains designed by Giacomo della Porta. The space currently occupied by the Piazza Navona was originally the Stadium of Domitian, built by Emperor Titus Flavius Domitianus in 80 AD. The Fountain of the Four Rivers was designed by Gian Lorenzo Bernini in 1651 for Pope Innocent X.
The four river gods represent the four major rivers of the four continents. The Nile representing Africa, the Danube representing Europe, the Ganges representing Asia, and the Rio de la Plata representing America.
Sant'Agnese in Agone is the site where the early Christian Saint Agnes was martyred in the ancient Stadium of Domitian. It was built in 1652 also on the initiative of Pope Innocent X, whose ancestral palace Palazzo Pamphilio joins this church. Fontana del Nettuno, restored by Bernini, remained for 300 years in the square with no statues and decorations. In 1873 Antonio della Bitta won the competition and would carve the statue of Neptune, while Gregorio Zapala carved the group around the basin, the sea horses, mermaids, and potos. Sculptures based on the mythological theme of the Nereids with cupids and walruses. In Greek mythology, the Nereids are sea nymphs. They often accompany Poseidon, the god of the sea, and can be friendly and helpful to sailors. The work was completed in 1878.
Now let's go to the most famous Italian fountain in Rome, the Trevi Fountain.
The Trevi Fountain is an 18th century fountain in the Trevi district in Rome, Italy, designed by Italian architect Nicola Salvi and completed by Giuseppe Panini. Standing 26 meters high and 49 meters wide, it is the largest Baroque fountain in the city and one of the most famous fountains in the world. Now the fence around the fountain has been opened.
Running to take a closer look.
How's the water?
Wonderful. I feel like I'm touching the unattainable.
What are your impressions?
I am so glad to be here.
Be sure to take some beautiful shots for memory.
Yes, of course.
They say that once the brave commander Agrippa and his warriors, especially thirsty, met a young maiden who, as if by a miracle, made a source of clean water gush out of the ground. Legend has it that whoever tosses a coin from behind their back into the Trevi Fountain, they will return to Rome. If you flip 2 coins, you will find love. 3. You assure marriage.
Let's go to another very interesting historical place, Castel Sant'Angelo.
Legend holds that the archangel Michael appeared atop the mausoleum, sheathing his sword as a sign of the end of the plague of 590, thus lending the castle its present name.
Who built the Castel Sant'Angelo?
The mausoleum of Hadrian, usually known as Castel Sant'Angelo. It was initially commissioned by the Roman Emperor Hadrian as a mausoleum for himself and his family. The tomb of the Roman Emperor Hadrian was erected between AD 134 and 139. Hadrian's ashes were placed here a year after his death in Baiae in 138, together with those of his wife Subina and his first adopted son, Lucius Aelius. The structure was once the tallest building in Rome. Hadrian also built the Pons Aelius facing straight onto the mausoleum. It is renowned for the Baroque additions of statues of angels holding aloft instruments of the Passion of Christ. Monument of Saint Catherine, Passetto di Borgo corridor between the castle and St. Peter's Basilica. Supervisory Court. Closer to the Church of St. Peter there is another famous bridge to Victor Emmanuel II, 1886.
In 1930, after the Lateran Accord, the Vatican became an autonomous state.
On this occasion, Mussolini built a white and bright street of reconciliation, which runs from the banks of the Tiber to St. Peter's Basilica, Rome. St. Peter's Square is a large square located directly opposite St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican.
It was designed by Gian Lorenzo Bernini in 1667.
Crucifixion of Apostle Peter in AD 64 happened near the ancient Egyptian obelisk in the Circus of Nero, not far from the Vatican. The obelisk now stands in St. Peter's Square and is revered as a witness to Peter's death. It was installed on the square in 1586 at the insistence of Pope Sixtus.
It took 900 workers, 140 horses and 44 winches to erect the obelisk.
All approaches to the square were blocked. Onlookers and a curious crowd were forbidden to make any sounds under pain of death. Orders were given with the help of the horn, drums and signal flags. Carefully and slowly they raised the obelisk to the pedestal, but during the ascent the ropes supporting it began to break.
Everyone froze in horror and deathly silence.
And at that moment, breaking the ban, a voice was heard from the crowd, "Water on the ropes."
It was the captain of a ship named Bresca from San Remo.
He knew very well from experience that when the ropes get wet, they tighten. So the obelisk was erected, and Captain Bresca was summoned to the Pope. He praised the captain and asked how he could thank him.
In response, the captain asked for permission to bring palm branches to the Vatican on Palm Sunday, the preceding Easter.
Who knows, perhaps even today the descendants of the captain bring palm trees to the Vatican, using an ancient privilege.
The square is surrounded by 2 covered colonnades arranged in a semicircle.
They are connected to the temple by 2 rectangular buildings. The colonnade is a truly brilliant idea of the architect Bernini. It symbolizes the open arms of the Michelangelo St. Peter's Basilica, stretched out to all people in a motherly embrace.
The colonnade in St. Peter's Square consists of 284 Doric columns and 140 sculptures. There are 2 fountains on the square.
One is the work of Alberto da Piacenza in an early version. It was rebuilt in 1516 by Carlo Maderna. The second fountain was created by Bernini on the model of the first, so as not to disturb the harmony of the square, with the only change, the bowl of the fountain was expanded and lowered.
The first St. Peter's Basilica in Rome was built in 326 during the reign of the first Christian emperor Constantine the Great. In the 15th century, the St. Peter's Church, which had already existed for 11 centuries, was threatened with collapse, and under Pope Nicholas V it began to be expanded and rebuilt.
Julius II radically solved this issue, planning to build a huge St. Peter's Cathedral on the site of the ancient basilica, which was supposed to overshadow both pagan temples and the existing Christian churches. The construction of the St. Peter's Basilica began in 1506, and for a century and a half, almost all the masters of the Italian Renaissance showed their skill and talent here.
St. Peter's Cathedral is distinguished by impressive parameters, about 211 meters in length and height, including the dome 132 meters. The total area of the church is 23,000 square meters.
Classical columns support an attic topped with 13 statues. A 5-meter statue of Christ, surrounded by John the Baptist and 11 apostles, adorn the front of St. Peter's Basilica. Also, the facade of the temple is decorated with a clock created in the 18th century by Giuseppe Valadier.
An interesting fact, the second largest Catholic church, St. Paul's Cathedral, is located in London. St. Peter's Basilica inside. The cathedral impresses with its splendor, huge size and richness of decoration.
In the dome space above the main altar there is a masterpiece by Bernini, a huge, 29 meters high Baldacchino di San Pietro, based on 4 twisted columns. Among the laurel branches on the upper parts of the columns are visible heraldic bees of the Barberini family, to which Pope Urban VIII belonged, by whose order this unusual work was created.
The Baldacchino di San Pietro was built in 1624 to 1633 and is located above the altar and the place where St. Peter's tomb.
To build such a powerful structure, it was necessary to make a solid foundation, for which it was necessary to open the floor and disturb the graves of the apostles. But Pope Urban VIII was adamant. He ordered everything that was needed to be dug up, and soon the foundation was made and the canopy was placed. Moreover, he ordered to take bronze from the facades of the Pantheon, for which he earned the notorious expression, "What the barbarians did not do, the Barberini did."
In the first chapel on the right is Michelangelo's masterpiece, the marble Pieta, La Pieta Michelangelo.
It was created by Italian Renaissance sculpture by Michelangelo Buonarroti at the turn of the 15th and 16th centuries at the age of 23. The most substantial damage occurred on 21 May 1972, Pentecost Sunday, when a mentally disturbed geologist, the Hungarian-born Australian Laszlo Toth, walked into the chapel and attacked the sculpture with a geologist's hammer while shouting, "I am Jesus Christ, I have risen from the dead." After the attack, the work was painstakingly restored and returned to its place in St. Peter's Basilica, just to the right of the entrance, between the Holy Door and the altar of St. Sebastian, and is now protected by a bulletproof acrylic glass panel.
Translated from Italian, Pieta means compassion, sorrow, pity, sympathy.
It is interesting that this is the only work where the great master Michelangelo left an autograph. He signed his signature on the ribbon of the Madonna, going over his shoulder. Designed principally by Donato Bramante, Michelangelo, Carlo Maderno and Gian Lorenzo Bernini, St. Peter's Basilica is the most famous piece of Renaissance architecture and the largest church in the world by internal standards.
As a work of architecture, it is regarded as the greatest building of its age. St. Peter's is one of the 4 churches in the world that hold the rank of major papal basilica and is also one of the 7 pilgrim churches of Rome.